So we're finally here. We're in the new set. We're in Boston. This isn't the final look of it. It's still a work in progress, but framing and everything will be figured out in future videos. I'm just kind of sitting down to talk because Venice Film Festival has wrapped up, which I think is at this point, here in September, a huge milestone in terms of precursors to the Academy Awards. And TIFF is now underway, and I think TIFF is just a little bit bigger, but in recent years, Venice Film Festival has proved to be pretty important in terms of predicting certain things. The Golden Lion, in the last 2 years in particular, has been a pretty solid telling as to what's going to be front-running in Best Picture. And you also, last year, had Olivia Colman picking up Best Actress. This year, I think the winners, other than the Golden Lion, are less telling than they have been. I don't think many of the winners are real contenders in major categories, as sometimes they have been. But I think it is important to talk about a few of the films that were seen and reviewed for the first time, including those that didn't win, some that were received very well, others that were received not so well. That may have been perceived as contenders before and are not anymore after the initial reviews. Like I said, the winners themselves, I'm mainly going to be focusing on the winner of the Golden Lion, less so the Grand Jury Prize. I don't think the Academy is going to touch Roman Polanski with a 10-foot pole. If you were to make the best film of all time, I don't think it would be nominated in any category at all. So I wouldn't particularly look forward to that. But I've drafted up a list of points. I don't think this video will be that long. There's not a ton to talk about other than the big thing. But I want to just discuss a couple of films really quick and, kind of say what I think we're looking at in terms of the next couple of months regarding those pictures as they release wide into the country. I'd originally planned on talking a little more about Ad Astra and The King. When I had seen that they were on the lineup, they were two of the bigger American names, domestic pictures that were at the Venice lineup. Venice has a lot of foreign films that appear and are talked about it at length. I just realized the light in this room isn't even on. I'm gonna hold on. That might have been the dumbest thing I think I've done yet on this channel. I was gonna talk more about those two movies. And then kind of analyzing them further, I've realized there's not a whole ton to talk about with them, but they're the first two I want to say anything about. Ad Astra opened to very strong reviews. Stronger than I had anticipated, actually. I'd seen the trailer and had expected it to be like a decently solid science fiction film. But when it was one of the first movies to hit the screens at Venice and, kind of made the big boom, there was conversation about, is this a contender? And the unfortunate thing is it does have the September release date. It comes out in 2 weeks. I get to see The Goldfinch this coming week, which I'll review, and then I'll see Ad Astra, which I'll probably also review. But it is a September release, and the reviews are great. It's David Ehrlich's choice for the top film of Venice Film Festival, I'm pretty sure. But I think it still has the capability to be clouded by a lot of better and more relevant films that are going to come out in October, November, and December, which is unfortunate because it does look good. It looks like a great performance out of Brad Pitt, but Brad Pitt's performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is already the one people are thinking about. Maybe some technical nominations if it really holds as well as it's going to. The Metascore on it is very good, and it seems it's being received well, so, it could be one of those creep-ups to keep your eye on, but I'm not really expecting it. And then with The King was one that you could maybe they'll use this as like a vehicle for Timothée Chalamet, but I think the reviews are fine. That people are thinking the movie's fine. It reminds me a lot of Outlaw King, actually, ironically enough. When that came out, I feel like it's going to be similar in quality and critical reception to Outlaw King. I apologize if the T is in the background, by the way. We're going to have to kind of get used to that. But, like I said, I thought that maybe it could be a vehicle for Timothée Chalamet after he kind of got snubbed last year with Beautiful Boy. But upon further look into it, I realized not only is it a Netflix film, but Netflix had a really strong presence this year at Venice Film Festival, with some of the biggest names at Venice Film Festival being Netflix films, with The King The Laundromat, and Marriage Story, all of which I'm going to cover in this video. But I think that where that plays out is I don't think Netflix is going to campaign The King very heavily, especially now having seen that reception isn't really that great for it. I think they're going to pool their resources and their campaigning elsewhere, and I think that that film that they're going to campaign is growing to be more and more obvious, especially after this particular film festival. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. But The King is another one that I've sort of started to write off unless Chalamet kind of creeps up in an unexpected nomination. I don't really think it's going to happen, but I guess you never know. I wouldn't place bets on it though if I were you. I shut the windows. We're getting used to this, okay? It's a learning experience for all of us, right? We're gonna get used to this together. So one of the other Netflix films that I just brought up that I had said had potential, in my opinion, at the beginning of the festival was The Laundromat, which is Steven Soderbergh's new film. They dropped a trailer for it. It looked very Soderbergh-ish, kind of had his style on it, his trademark on it, and he hasn't always been a favorite with the Academy, and he can be very hit or miss with whether his films are great or just fine. But when he makes a hit, he really makes a hit, so it was one to look forward to. Plus, you had Scott Z. Burns on the screenplay, and this is the second of his films that I thought would have pretty strong potential. I'm still looking out for The Report. I think The Report is still a film that people should be paying attention to and not forgetting about. I think Gold Derby is underestimating it a little bit. I don't think that you should rule that out. I think the subject matter, the cast, and just the overall way the film looks strikes me as something that could still be a contender, but I'll talk about that at another date. But this film opened to kind of unfortunate reviews. Critics didn't really love it, which is too bad because I really did think it had potential. The only reason I kind of bring it up is Meryl Streep and Gary Oldman are always kind of possibles, especially Gary Oldman recently. I think the Academy kind of wants to nominate him again after that win for Darkest Hour because, how long was he on all of those lists of actors who, some of the best actors of all time that have never won an Oscar? And now that he has one, I think A, he's going to try and go for another one, and B, I think they're going to be pretty receptive of his attempts to get another one. So I think any film that he is in is one to look forward to. That's why I was looking forward to Woman in the Window, which wound up getting pushed back, so I'm glad I didn't wind up talking about that. But Meryl Streep is always a performer to look out for. Even in the most mediocre of films, Meryl Streep can pick up a nomination, which is the only reason that I'm still paying attention to The Laundromat. It's another Netflix release, so again, I think them having seen this reception is going to result in them not pushing it that heavily. They're going to pool their resources elsewhere, which I'm going to talk about in a very short minute. But yeah, it's an unfortunate one. I think there was a lot of talk about that. I know IndieWire had put that on some of their top contenders for the year, but if the film simply isn't very good, it isn't very good. If it's as stylistic as it seems to be, maybe an editing nomination in there, but I don't think so. If anything, Meryl Streep would get some crazy nomination, but I don't even think that's going to happen for this film. I just, with movies like The Post and Into the Woods, it's clear that no matter what Meryl Streep is in, it's a possibility, at the very least, for her to get a nomination. Gary Oldman, I don't think that's going to happen. Even, if the film had been great, I would have said Antonio Banderas is a possibility, but his name is already on the table for Pain and Glory, which he had won at for Cannes, and I think that that's still a very important film to look out for when that releases wide here. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. I think he has a good chance of picking up his first Oscar nomination for that. So again, all these names, Meryl Streep, whether she picks one up or not, you got Antonio Banderas, who's being talked about elsewhere, you have Scott Z. Burns, who's being talked about elsewhere, you have Netflix, who's talking about other things elsewhere. I think that this movie's just going to get fucking, kind of pushed back. People are going to forget about this one. So the one that Netflix is going to push, I think, is this Marriage Story film, which was a heavily requested one for me to talk about. I very simply didn't know much about it until it's finally open to rave critic reviews. Critics are loving this film. And it's got the release date. I think it's going to be Netflix's #1 push for Oscar nominations, at least coming out of Venice Film Festival. And I kind of think it has everything it needs to succeed at the Academy Awards. Noah Baumbach was nominated once back in like 2006, I think, for screenplay for Squid and the Whale. And he's always made like great films that when you look at on the surface should be really strong Oscar contenders, like Frances Ha. And I think, you know, he just kind of needed that backing. I think he always needed that push from the production companies, and he needed the right release date. He needed all sorts of things that I don't think he had. And he finally has those, and it seems like he's crafted what could be his best film. So this is a huge one now to look out for. You know, everyone who has Netflix should definitely watch this one when it hits. I think Scarlett Johansson is a huge topic of discussion for this, whether she's going to pick up a leading actress nomination or not. It's looking more and more likely. The only thing that could slow her down is herself, with all the shit that she's said and like weird stuff. I'm not, you know, gonna comment on it. It's just, I think we can all agree it's such a weird topic, and I think that's the only thing that could hurt her. But I think by the time Oscar nominations and voting is happening, that'll have sort of died down a little bit and people will have forgotten about that. I think she's a very strong possibility for a leading actress nom. And I think Adam Driver could even be a possibility for a nomination. Adam Driver deserves some serious credit in Hollywood at this point. He really came out swinging. He's now an Oscar nominee. They could give him back-to-back nominations. He's really proven himself to be an excellent performer. I saw The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. I think that's one of his best performances by far. And I think that tackling another serious role for him, a very nuanced kind of role, could be what the Academy is looking for him, and they could start appreciating that kind of performance from him. And I think they could throw him another nomination. So I think Johansson and him are big ones to look forward to, including seeing the film in Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. The reviews are strong enough to really push it towards those, so I think that that's a big one to look forward to. And the big one, the Golden Lion, Joker. The big question became how Joker was going to do, for one, right? Started out very strong, with very, very good reviews. Some people disliked it. I think it's going, when it hits wide, I think it's going to be a divisive one, to be honest with you. I think some people will love it and others will not appreciate it. We're going to find out in a couple of weeks, which is kind of nice. But taking the Golden Lion is huge, especially now. The Golden Lion historically has not always been a solid precursor for Best Picture, but modernly it has been. The last 2 years, it's been a major precursor for the Best Picture category. Not just for Best Picture, but in picking up all sorts of other nominations. The last two Golden Lion winners, Shape of Water and Roma, Shape of Water taking Best Picture, Roma coming this close, both films taking Best Director. It's obviously a huge deal, and you know, you got to think about Shape of Water. You had Guillermo del Toro, and Roma, you had Alfonso Cuarón. One of them being a foreign film. They're both very, you know, artsy kind of films. And this one, you've got the guy who directed The Hangover making a movie about a comic book villain. It's a very different winner, but it's obviously a very different film. So it's clear that this is one to look out for. Now, people are calling it Joaquin Phoenix's best performance. They're saying it's his, like, cumulative performance of everything he's ever done. You can see how everything is built to this, which is interesting because that's what people always said about Heath Ledger. It's such an interesting topic of discussion regarding, like, the Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix thing, asking the question of, does Heath Ledger's win back 10 years ago now slow down Joaquin Phoenix from a possible one, because that win was such a big deal, right? It wasn't just a big deal for the Oscars, it was a big deal for film. It had become clear that this guy was going to be one of the best actors of all time before he had passed away, and he put on one of the best performances of all time. It was like the first major comic book movie win. It was a huge deal. And you have to ask yourself the question, does that hurt Joaquin Phoenix? And we don't know yet. There's no way to know, but I think if the movie... film festivals don't love giving movies several wins in different places, so it's an interesting topic that I've seen as well of well, if Joker hadn't taken the Golden Lion, would Joaquin Phoenix have taken Best Actor? Because he didn't. I think a nomination for him in leading actor is a pretty sure bet, and I think the movie being in Best Picture now is almost a 100% guarantee. It'll be interesting to see where screenplay winds up and whether Todd Phillips will squeeze his way into Best Director. Like I said, the Golden Lion has been a big precursor for director, so I think that it's a pretty good chance that he's going to. But there's so much going on with Joker. I can't wait to review it. It winning the Golden Lion, if you don't know much about like film festivals and their correlation with Academy Award nominations and wins, all you need to know is winning the Golden Lion is a very, very big fucking deal. And it'll be a very big deal to see who wins TIFF. And it'll be a very, very, very big deal to see who wins TIFF as well, because Green Book took TIFF last year. So it's looking forward into, I think next week the winners for TIFF will be nominated or will be revealed. So next week, for me, look for a TIFF winners analysis and just a TIFF movies analysis. What just screened there? Something just screened. Knives Out, but that's not going to be an Oscar contender. So look out for that video, and then I'll probably be reviewing The Goldfinch next weekend as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I want to hear your thoughts on these winners. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. People have been asking me to talk about Joker for a long time. It's just kind of hard to figure out what to talk about without it being out yet, because it is DC, so there was always the chance that it could still be bad. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm looking forward to more videos here in Boston, and I'll see you all next time.